Welcome to the new Tuesday Doctor's Call on Zoom. Today we start on the Zoom app, or you can access the call on computer through zoom.us. And again, we have our wonderful host, Dr. Kurt Fisnick, who is an award-winning chiropractor and has been absolutely changing lives for many, many years. And today he has some really good information to share with us, like he does every Tuesday. So welcome, Dr. Kurt.
Well, thanks, Andrea, and thanks for the introduction. You know, I've really led a blessed life. Things seem to go right for me, and I love it. And, you know, as successful as people get, if they're not on purpose, they just don't seem to be happy and things like that. So I just want to talk about that a little bit before I get started today. You know, my purpose really is to go out and help as many people as I possibly can, help them get healthier, help them live happier lives, and really disease-free and pain-free. And so that's why I do a lot of the things that I do. I mean, I don't have to be here today. I don't have to be, you know, running up to Detroit and opening up a stem cell clinic, things like that. I mean, those are ways that I find that I can reach out to more people. And when I got into the network marketing arena, when I started working with this business about a decade ago, I didn't realize how many lives I'd be able to impact. And now here I am. We can reach around the globe with this call, with this information that we're doing today, with the Zoom format. I just love it because it's a new way of sharing the information and that. So Andrea, thanks for the introduction. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
You know, I spent the last 2 days basically sitting in an airport down in Dallas. I got stuck there. I don't know, there must have been some weather. That's what they're blaming it on anyhow. And so flights were canceled and delayed and all that. I finally got home about 10 o'clock last night. And I just hate sitting in airports because I have a hard time concentrating. I have a hard time thinking when there's so many things happening. There's so much going on around me. And I think it's one reason that I don't like going to Las Vegas. It's just, there's just too much stimulus going around me. And so I got home last night and I'm like, oh man, I got to figure out what I'm going to talk about on the call. And so I went to bed last night and I woke up a couple times during the night thinking, well, maybe I should talk about it now. And so this morning, maybe about half an hour ago, 45 minutes ago, I decided, you know, I'm going to talk about the brain. What do you think, Andrea?
We all have one. We all need one. Let's talk about it.
We all have one, and we all need one, right? Except for that movie with who was that? Who was that was in that movie? The Man with Two Brains.
I didn't see that one.
Really? With
Really?
Oh God, what's his name? Anyhow, there was a movie that was called, you know, The Man with Two Brains. It was funny. It was funny. It was a funny movie. So anyhow, you know, as we talk about brains and we talk about different things, you know, the word that we want to talk about is something called neurogenesis. And right now we have a neurogenesis revolution going on. We've got a lot of different little revolutions going on. People don't want to get old. They don't want to die young. And they don't want to have loss of memory. So right now, if you took and really polled people as far as like what diseases they're worried about, and this was actually done, the Medical Association, I don't remember which group, they actually surveyed people. And, you know, are you worried about heart disease? Are you worried about cancer? Are you worried about this? Are you worried about that? And one of the things they're more worried about is losing their mind because we are going to live older and people are going to live to be, you know, 80, 90, 100 years old. And the thing about it is that as you get older, you have an increased risk of having a decline of neural function. I think I read somewhere if you make it to 85, you have a 50% chance of having Alzheimer's. 50%. Isn't that, I mean, that's scary, because of all the things that we're doing, we're trying to live longer, we're trying to live healthier, and then you do all those things to live healthier, and then all of a sudden, you know, your family finds out, you don't find out, but your family finds out that you have Alzheimer's. And how devastating would that be? And so I think about it, you know, your life could be so much more than what it is right now. If you had increased energy, better memory, and started every day just feeling positive, feeling rested, ready to tackle any challenge that comes across you. And so all this new science that we have, they're showing that we can do something about it. And there's an untapped potential that we can make the brain operate at the highest level. So to reach this potential, we have to talk about something called neurogenesis. And neurogenesis is really, it's the process of creating new neurons, new brain cells. And neurogenesis is how the brain renews and upgrades itself. And to increase your neurogenesis really improves every aspect of your life. You're going to have higher cognitive function. You're going to have better memory. You're going to have faster learning. You're going to have better emotions. You're going to have protection from stress and anxiety and depression. You're going to have an elevated immune system. And overall, your brain function is going to be better. And just imagine, you just feel on top of your game every single day. Every single day. I tell people, I mean, that's how I feel right now. I read this information on neurogenesis, and I go, yeah, that's me. I mean, I just, you know, 10 and a half years ago, I was involved in a motorcycle accident. It nearly killed me. I was in a coma for a few days. I was in a hospital and for a few months, and they wanted to operate and remove my leg. They wanted to amputate my right leg. And then I was in a wheelchair for 2 years, and I really was, you know, partially disabled. And how many lives would just be devastated by that? And really, I tell people now, for me, I find that in reality, the motorcycle accident probably saved my life, because it gave me the chance to kind of, you know, in golf, we call it a mulligan, a do-over, a do-over. Andrea, do you ever wish in life there was a way that you could go back and change a few things, and you know, you could have a do-over on this, or you could have a do-over on that? Wouldn't that be great?
It would. I think everyone feels that way.
Yeah. And so if you could have a do-over, if you could take a mulligan, right? And so what if you tell people, you say, hey, you start talking about that. And I'm trying to give you some tips on how to share this information. And what if you said to somebody, you said, hey, Andrea, you know, are there anything in your life that you'd ever like to do over? You know, in golf, we call it a mulligan. How'd you like to have a mulligan on your life?
Definitely.
Yeah, I got some stuff that I'd like to share with you. And so up until the 1990s, scientists, when they looked at brain health, in fact, to the late 1990s, you know, to the year 2000, they thought that the brain stopped growing by early adulthood. They believed that you know, once you got to be into your 20s, you had a slow, unavoidable slide where the brain cells just died off, never to be replaced, gradually at first, and then faster and faster and faster, until when you got old, it didn't work anymore. What do you think of that?
Personally, I'm really glad they were wrong about that one.
That's exactly it. They were wrong about it, and that's exactly it. And so what we're finding is that people have neurogenesis, or building new brain cells, at different rates. Some people, they just kind of chug along, you know, and just build brain cells at the average rate. Some people, they they build brain cells at a slower rate, as slow as 1/5 of the average. And then other people create new brain cells at just this rapid clip, like a machine gun did, and then new brain cells just building all the time. And so if it's fast, you're going to have a life where you're alive, you're engaged, you're going to find that you have fulfilling life, and everything is just fun, and you're protected from stress and depression. You feel good all the time. Your immune system is just running at high. Your spirits are high. Your outlook is great. When you have a slow rate of neurogenesis, your brain is shrinking. Your life is contracting. You have memory loss. You have dementia. You have stress. You have depression. You have decreased cognitive function. Your immune system. All these things are suffering because you have a slow neurogenesis. And when we talk about, high brain quality, it doesn't mean that you're going to have necessarily a high IQ. It doesn't mean that you're going to be, some really brilliant artist or have a huge talent, anything like that. It just means that you're dynamic, you're alive, you're moving, and your brain is growing. So the faster you can make your brain grow, new brain cells, neurogenesis, the faster that you make new neurons, then you're going to have a more youthful vitality of your brain, and it's going to be good. High rate means that you're doing exceedingly well. Normal rate means that you're okay. Things are pretty normal. And when you have a low rate of neurogenesis, you're going to struggle. You're going to have anxiety. You're going to be depressed. You're going to have all these different things going on. So you want to be neurohealthy, because what happens is that's what's going to make it so that all these other things are going to be great. You're going to have, just everything is going to be good. And if you can increase your rate of neurogenesis 3 to 5 times the rate at what most people have, you're going to find that you can operate at that higher level of brain function all the time. And you can do neurogenesis at any time. You don't have to be in your 20s. You don't have to be in your 30s. You don't have to be in your 50s. You can change this. Even if you're listening to this call or watching this webinar and you're in your 80s, you can make this change at any time. They took mice, and what they did is they gave them an enriched environment. This is one study Dr. Fred Gage did. And they gave them an enriched environment to live with, all the different areas to explore, new things to explore, new materials to build nests with, and interact with other mice, and sensory things to do, and all these different things, just complex types of things. And they found that those mice had 1/6 more brain cells than the average mouse. I mean, not that we want super mice or anything like that. I mean, that's the last thing that I'd like, because I hate mice. But that's the last thing I want. But mice are so closely related as far as function as humans that it's really interesting when you look at that. So we really don't know, because this science is all new. So we don't know. What would it be like to have an optimal childhood, adolescence, young adulthood? We don't know, because we don't know what that accelerated neurogenesis looks like. We don't know what is it like to be middle-aged and have optimal life, because we don't know what it means to have accelerated neurogenesis in middle life. We don't know what it means to have optimal old age, because, again, we've never studied it. And so here we are. We're in the midst of a revolution. We're learning these new things. And one of the things that changed everything was when they really started studying depression. And they found that when they gave people these SSRI drugs, they found that in some cases, about half the people, they got better. Their depression seemed to get better. So all of a sudden, the drug companies, made by 2013, these drug companies made $15 billion. $15 billion they made because of the SSRI type drug. But when you studied it and you checked and you went, well, they don't have any decrease, they don't have a deficiency of serotonin any more than the people who have that don't have depression. The serotonin levels were the same. But what they found was that if they gave this drug to people that had a high rate of neurogenesis, they found that they got better. And so all of a sudden they started studying this. This is in the 1990s. And I'm going, holy cow, okay, that starts to make sense, because I've looked at the SSRI type drugs and I've gone, holy cow, you know. And so when you see neurogenesis start to drop, the quality of life goes down. They have more memory loss. They have cognitive impairments. They have stress, anxiety, fear, depression. Emotional resilience goes down. They have reduced immunity, right? Immune system. They get sick more often, and they start to develop dementia and Alzheimer's. And so they found that there's two parts of the brain where the brain actually grows new brain cells. It's like the, oh man, Andrea, help me out here. Where do you buy, like this time of year, if you want to go buy some tomato plants to put in your garden, where do they buy that? What's that? Is that a nursery?
Yes, I was just at one.
Yes. Yeah, so you go there and you buy your tomato plants, right?
Yes, we do.
Okay, and so that's what the two parts of the brain are that grow new brain cells. They're like the nursery for brain cells. One of them is the olfactory lobe, right? Do you know what the olfactory lobe in your brain does?
Well, it has something to do with your smell.
It registers smells. Exactly. So that's one of the things that they found when they find that people have a decline in neurogenesis is guess what sense they start to lose fast?
Their sense of smell.
Their sense of smell, exactly. So if you want to find out from somebody, if you're talking to somebody who seems to be depressed, they seem to get sick quite often, they seem to have this and that just doesn't indicate that they have a healthy life, what's the one question you might want to ask them?
Can you smell these flowers?
Can you smell these flowers? Can you smell that? Do you have a good sense of smell? And when you have a bad sense of smell, guess what else you have a bad sense of? Taste.
Taste.
The answer is taste, right? And so people start to say, oh, food doesn't taste good anymore, right? You ever notice that when you talk to older people? They say, oh, yeah, you know, food just doesn't taste good anymore.
Yes, my dad used to tell my mother that all the time. Your food has no flavor. It usually caused a pretty big fight.
Right? And that could be the most spicy food in the world and all that. And so I'm looking at this going, hey, what if we start concentrating on that? And as we're working with this new field of anti-aging, slowing the aging process down, why don't we start asking people, hey, let's get your sense of taste and sense of smell up. You know, here, why don't we do this before we put you on the age pill, before we put you on the brain vitality? Let's do a little survey on a sense of on a scale of 1 to 10 or 1 to 100, however you want to do it. How is your sense of smell? How is your sense of taste? Things like that. And then as they get better, you start to quiz them and you go, hey, it's getting better, right? But the other part of the brain is called the hippocampus, and it's an area of the brain that forms new memories. It orientates the body in space, right? Again, think about older people. They start to lose that sense of balance because the hippocampus starts to go down. They have problems with mood, with emotions. And so the hippocampus holds the key to brain enhancement. So those are some of the things that we want to talk about. And so neurotoxins, and that's a whole subject that we can get into, cause problems with these areas. Toxic relationships can cause stress. It can even cause brain death, right? And so we start looking at all these things, and we don't want to just leave neuroscience to neuroscientists, right? Because when you have neuroscientists, the scientists, they got to get paid. Guess who's going to pay them? Well, the drug companies are going to pay them. And so all of a sudden, all that information, it goes into developing a drug and all these different things. You and I, right here where we're sitting right now, we have the key to this thing. We can just do so many different things. And I'm paging through a book that I was reading this morning on neurogenesis and talking about it. And so increase your neurogenesis, increase the rate at which you build new brain cells by just never letting it slow down, right? And how do you do that? The 4 poisons that cause the slowing down of neurogenesis is chronic inflammation, chronic stress, which includes anxiety and fear, physical assault or physical trauma, and deprivation. And so we start looking at those things and we start going, okay, we can do that. So there's certain foods, there's certain spices, there's certain nutrients, there's certain plant extracts that can increase neurogenesis. And there's lots of things that we can do that will increase it. And then there's things that can slow it down. And I'm going to get into this a little bit, but I'm just going to quickly go down through a list. So I list them real quickly. Blueberries, right? Blueberries. Extracts from blueberries. You see the word pterstilbene, P-T-E-R-S-T-I-L-B-E-N-E. That's the extract from blueberries. Omega-3s, especially the DHA, the EPA extract from fish oils and flax oils and algae, chia seeds, things like that. Green tea extracts like EGCG, curcumin, right? Turmeric, which is a spice that we see in our brain vitality, and we'll talk about that. Ginseng and ginkgo biloba and quercetin and vitamin E and pepper, black pepper, DHEA and tryptophan and 5-hydroxytryptophan, which, where do we see that? The age pill. Rhodiola, which is found in the inner chi products, and melatonin and mulberry and sage and lithium, which is a mineral that's found in the Spectromax, and goji berry, which is found in Spectromax, and grapeseed extract, which is found in the age pill, right? These are all nutrients that we found, and the superstars turn out to be the blueberries, the omega-3s, the green tea, and the curcumin, right? That's some of the best ones. There was a study that was done, a report in January 2014 in the issue of Neurology, that lower brain volume, a smaller hippocampus size is found. It's associated with older adults with lower omega-3 levels. This author, Dr. James Padala, he said, the study adds to the growing literature suggesting that higher omega-3 fatty acid tissues, which can be achieved by dietary changes, hold the promise for delaying cognitive aging and dementia. Right? I'm going to read that part again. Higher omega-3 fatty acid tissue levels holds the promise for delaying cognitive aging. Holy cow. Fish oils, right? And you start looking at it, you going, we've got the best fish oil product on the market called Supra Omega-3. And it's what a great product that one is. And so when we're looking at it, right, there's the product on the screen now. It's got omega-3s, it's got omega-5s, it's got omega-7s, and a lot of people, they associate the omega-3s with cardiovascular health, but it's associated with brain. And then they found that magnesium threonate, a study, this was actually developed by the MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, called magnesium L-threonate, the best magnesium for the brain, because it passes through the blood-brain barrier so much quicker, and it prevents Alzheimer's disease. This is what MIT said. It's not me saying it. It's MIT. Then we got beta-alanine and L-carnosine. Beta-alanine is an amino acid precursor to L-carnosine. I made a post on it the other day on Facebook. L-carnosine, which is a enzyme that's found in red meat. It helps to help with anti-glycation. But guess what happened in the 60s and 70s? We started telling people, quit eating red meat because there's all these bad fats in it. So everybody went on this low fat, no fat diet, and they quit eating red meat. and they're not getting their L-carnosine. Well, beta-alanine is an amino acid precursor to it, and beta-alanine is a much cheaper way to increase the carnosine levels than taking L-carnosine. And to get the levels of L-carnosine from foods, because some people tell me, they say, well, I'm just going to eat right. Yeah, oh, go ahead. That's 4 half-pound steaks a day you're going to need to eat right. Yeah, go ahead. You go ahead. Yeah, one of my best friends, he sells windows. He told me he's going to eat right. I said, well, you got to eat 4 steaks a day, right? And then vitamin D and alpha-lipoic acid. Again, it's an ingredient found in the age pill. Resveratrol. We've got the only resveratrol product that I would recommend for anybody. It's called Eternity, and I'm not going to get into that today. We've covered that on other calls. Chocolate. Chocolate is healthy for the brain, and cocoa, right? So eat dark chocolate. That's the best ones for you because it's got all the flavonoids in it, and it's going to help. And then milk thistle extract. It's found in our super detox, right? All these different things. And what's one of the things that can slow down neurogenesis? Excess carbohydrates. And we've talked about that quite a bit. And I tell people that if you take a look and you go back to like when the 250,000 years ago, our ancestors, we hunted, we gathered plants, roots, vegetables, nuts, grains, and sugar, which at that time was in the form of fruit, was rarely available. Late summer, right? Winter time when you could store it and things like that. But about 10,000 years ago, about a blink of the eye in genetic time, all of a sudden, agriculture. We started raising grains and carbohydrates, and then recently processed foods in the last 50 years, and all of a sudden we're seeing more people with cognitive decline. And so if we go back and we look at, back in the days, thousands, tens of thousands of years ago, the diet was 60 to 75% fat, 20% protein, and 5 to 20% carbohydrates. We look at today's government guidelines with the pyramid, the food pyramid, 60% carbohydrates, 20% protein, 20% fat. You notice how we've reversed it in the modern diet? And why is that? Because they have all this food that they want to sell you. They have all this excess stuff that we want to find that we're selling people, and our bodies were never designed to deal with all that massive onslaught of sugars and carbohydrates, and it's the fats that feed the brain. And so sugars and carbohydrates, the Western diet, lots of glucose, lots of sugar. It provides energy, but what happens? Take a look at us. 50 to 80% of adults in the United States have something we call insulin resistance. And what does insulin do? Well, insulin causes glucose and problems like that, high levels of glucose, and then the proteins and fats get glycated, advanced glycation end product. And what that does, it sets off an inflammatory cascade of activating inflammatory genes that turn on the systems of the body that cause inflammation in the heart, the eyes, the brain, and the vascular system, right? And so what happens is this just keeps going and going and going, and it just causes lots of problems, 50 times more free radicals, right? Free radicals, what does that cause? That causes cancer, right? It causes tumors. And so higher glucose levels are associated with cognitive decline as we age, and it causes brain shrinkage. And so when we start talking about glycation and things like that, right, the product that you should be thinking about is the age pill, because that's the product that was designed by Sisel to help reduce this glycation, and it changes how the fatty acids function in the body, and it makes it so that we start to have better health. It reduces inflammation, it reduces oxidation. And I'm working at setting up a stem cell clinic, and one of the things that we discussed at the seminar this last weekend on stem cells was that if you get a stem cell injection and get a treatment with that, and you've got inflammation in your body, guess what the stem cell is going to work on first? You got that right. It's going to fix the inflammation first, so it's not going to cause regeneration of the soft tissue, and it's going to actually just fix the inflammation. So then what's going to happen is that you're not going to actually get the benefit. You're not going to get the regeneration. So that's why we're working with our patients. We're working really, really strongly with getting rid of this inflammation. Alzheimer's disease, beginning in the year 2005, they started finding out that Alzheimer's is really a form of diabetes. They're calling it type 3 diabetes. And they're saying by the year 2020, a third of Americans are going to be diabetic. I just start looking at this. It's like, wow. We start looking at, why do we give grain to animals? Why do we feed cattle corn and grain? Well, it's to fatten them up. Look at people in America. We're fat. We're huge, right? And so what we want to do is we want to shift the diet to more protein, more healthy fat. A lot of people are calling it a ketogenic diet. I'm just calling it a sensible diet, right? And slow down the glycemic foods. Avoid foods that cause this glycation. Avoid the foods that have lots of advanced glycation end products because it's damaging for the body. And then don't overcook your food. Don't overcook it. Don't over grill it. Don't burn your food. Don't put your steak on the grill and burn it till it's brown, right? You want to take and you want to cook it at slow rates so that it's actually healthier for you because it's going to cause your food to be better. And then when you're cooking food, you know, a few years back they came out with this invention called margarine, right? And margarine is so unhealthy. And even olive oil, when you cook with it, what it does is that at higher temperatures, it causes problems. I mean, it's good, but, you know, you don't want to cook with it. You're better off cooking with butter and lard and coconut oils because these saturated fats don't oxidize at the higher temperatures. And then what you want to do is you want to get some CoQ10. Well, guess where we put CoQ10? We put CoQ10 in with our omega-3s, so it's in our Super Omega Plus. We've added it there because it helps. It helps not just with the heart, but it helps out with the brain. And so we want to get rid of inflammation because inflammation causes a slowdown of neurogenesis. It increases the aging of your brain, and that's not good, right? And so I just start. I know I sound super excited about this because I'm reading this stuff, and I got a whole book here that I'm reading on, and you know. How long does it take to start making changes? 2 to 3 weeks. People say, oh, yeah, it's too late for me, right? I mean, how many times do you hear that? So what you want to do is you want to start, you know, making changes now. 2 to 3 weeks. 2 to 3 weeks, and all of a sudden you're going to start to find that your body's going to change, and then you start doing different things. You want to increase the time between meals because that increases neurogenesis, right? You want to make your body feel like it's starving once in a while. That's what we call intermittent fasting. Make your body feel like it's starving because if your body thinks it's starving, it's going to build brain cells, right? And then what you want to do is you want to start eating food that you actually have to chew, right? I know a lot of people are into these smoothies, right? And they grind up all their food and they put it into their blender, these super blenders, and they make everything soft, right? No way. Because your brain needs to chew the food. You need to feel that chewing mechanism, those muscles, it tells your brain, hey, we're growing. And so I want to go talk about brain vitality a little bit. Brain vitality, like it says on the website, it's like a gym membership for your brain. It's got a good blend of the curcuma longa. It's got fenugreek. It's got other things that help support the brain. But one of the things I want to talk about today, and I'm kind of watching the time so I can get over this. I've already gone over time, but I'm going to keep talking, is that this magnesium threonate, right? They found that in 9 years, you can reverse the age of the brain using magnesium threonate. This is an MIT study. They found that it reverses brain degeneration, right? It's critical because it causes the brain synapses to work better, the connections between the brain cells, right? And so we have magnesium threonate in our product. We've got it in Brain Vitality. We've got curcuma longa, which is the best form of turmeric, right? It makes it so that it's 6 to 8 times more bioavailable. The body's better able to absorb it. It gets rid of inflammation. We've got bacapa in there. Bacapa is a herb that comes from India. And they found that bacapa not only works with the telomeres, but it helps make the brain cells that they work better, right? We've got citrulline. This is the best brain product that I've ever seen. Then we talk about the age pill. Not only look and feel like you're in your 20s, but one of the first things that I noticed when I started taking the age pill is I started noticing that I started having the memory that I did when I was in my 20s. This is my testimonial. Oh, man. And it's just crazy, the results that you start to have that. We got Super Omega. Super Omega is it's one of the best omegas on the market. And you can go to the website. You can see this. It's just that good. And then we've got Eternity. And Eternity is a resveratrol product, because most resveratrol, people say, oh, yeah, I ever take resveratrol. They take a powdered form of it. Well, guess what they do to powder it? They expose it to high temperatures. They destroy the properties of the resveratrol when they make the pill. And then it's oxidized. And when it's oxidized, that's like rust. Do you want to take resveratrol that's rusted? No way. No way. And so when I start looking at these different things, I'll tell you what, I get super excited. I'm trying to share this information with people, and I want to make it so that we can all live happy, healthy lives. And so, I know I've run out of time. I've gone over time. And Andrea, I'll let you close out the call. Are you still there?
Thank you, Doc, for all that great information. Anyone who is listening today, if your friend invited you or you saw it posted on their Facebook, social media pages, go ahead and get back with your friend. They'd be happy to help you with some of the products that Doc has talked about, which come from Sisel International. Sisel International creates products for about 160 different companies, but we have our own very special marketing arm that creates highly effective products, and they would be happy to help you with those. Thank you, Doc, for all this great information today.
Thank you, Andrea, and thanks for being here every week. I really appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.